I am Dr. Erin Sousley, for those of you that I haven't met yet, and most of you know Dr. Ryan, and this is one of our favorite seminars, workshops that we host annually. One, because we're thick in the middle of raising 4 kids under the age of 9. Our oldest is almost 9. And so we've seen it all. We've, dealt with so many different things as parents, but also clinically, we've really been able to help our pediatric population, whether it's nutritionally, helping their spine and their nervous system. So we're excited to share all of the things that we do as a family and that we recommend to our patients. And for those of you that are here, I just want to commend you. You may be parents, you may be grandparents, and just by showing up, it really shows that you care. And I think most parents really do care about the health of their children. We are raising the next generation. So these little humans are going to grow up to be adults, and they are going to be, changing the world. And we really do look at our children as world changers. And I'm sure that you see your children and grandchildren the same way. There's a lot of unrest happening in our country right now, which is really disheartening. And so I take my job very seriously as a mom, both with their health and, who I'm raising them to be. These are the future peacekeepers. These are the equality protectors. And so there's now, obviously this is a huge undertaking as a parent, and I just want to commend you. It's not easy, but you're showing up, and this is the first step. So for those of you that are here and that stick around to the end, we are going to be gifting you this awesome Max Kids recipe book. It is full of healthy breakfast, lunch, and dinner recipes to make, while you've got these young kiddos living with you. And I honestly, the recipes are legit. They're really good. I think your kids are really going to enjoy them. So this is just our gift to you for showing up. So as I said, we have 4 kids, but we're also chiropractors. We are certified functional medicine practitioners. So we've gone through some extensive extra schooling so that we can deliver the best to our patients and our followers. We have a podcast, Win Your Health, that you can check out on iTunes. We speak at seminars regularly across the country. Dr. Ryan recently got to contribute to a few different books. And so, we really want to have all this information for our patients and for the people that are following us so that they can do better and be better. Our mission is to empower people to live longer, healthier lives through chiropractic care and an integration of the 5 essentials of max living, which we're going to be going through today. We have core chiropractic. That is the #1 essential to make sure that there's no interference to your spine and your nervous system. Nutrition, mindset, oxygen, and exercise, and then minimizing toxins. So these are the 5 essentials. And these definitely apply to our children. So we have seen, unfortunately, a rise in children that are dealing with adult conditions. So this slide, the AAP has issued new guidelines for lipid screening in children and even cholesterol management in kids as young as 8. So we're talking about adult medications now being given to children because they're showing up with cholesterol issues, plaquing of the arteries, when we never used to see this before in children this young. So this is pretty alarming. Looking at heart conditions, so this study looked at 200 children that unfortunately had passed away in fatal accidents. They were autopsied, and 10% of them between the ages of 2 and 15 had plaquing in their arteries already at such young ages. 35% of the ages of 16 to 20 in this study had plaquing, so a significant percentage of the bodies that were looked at. And over 70% of them that were in their mid-20s had plaquing of their arteries. So we know this is happening. 1 in 6 kids now has a developmental disorder. Autism rates, this slide says 1 in 68, but I just checked the CDC. That number is now 1 in 54 in the US. That was just recently posted, I think, in May. 1 in 408 children is going to get cancer before the age of 15. 1 in 285 will be diagnosed before the age of 20. We're seeing, in our clinic too, just a rise in autoimmune disorders in kids. We're seeing allergies, asthma, ADHD, autism like never before. And unfortunately, life expectancy in our country is continuing to decline. So we, again, like I said earlier, we take this very seriously as parents, but also as your doctors. And so we want to do something about this. We need to change.
You stole my section.
Sorry. You can go now.
I get to talk now for a little bit.
Fired up.
That was my section. I have nothing else to say. No, I did want to just make the point that it's not genetic. You know, obviously you can see that we have a problem with the health of our country at large, but also our younger population. And in my opinion, you know, having 4 kids and having a practice that's 30% pediatric, you know, we actually have the largest pediatric clinic in North Idaho. And it's just because, you know, we really value the health of our next generation. It's literally our country's future. And the thing is that we're all created for a purpose. You know, when you have a child, you look at that child and you just think of all the potential that they have and all the great things that they're going to do with their life. But the reality is that you can't serve your purpose if you're sick, suffering, or dead. And the problem is that most of the time, you know, we just think, oh, it's just, you know, they're just kids. They can eat whatever they want. They can do whatever they want. We'll worry about their health when they get older. Doing that has landed us in the predicament that we're in today. So that's mistake number one. Mistake number 2 is thinking that it's just genetics. You know, everybody in our family is heavy, so he's going to be heavy or she's going to be heavy. Everybody in our family has heart disease. Everybody in our family has cancer or diabetes. You know, just thinking that because it runs in your family means it's inevitable that it's going to happen to your child. That's terrible, because it's basically, you know, you're not taking responsibility, and you're also, you know, it breeds hopelessness, because if you just think you're a victim of your genes, you know, genes are kind of like the trigger on a gun. You know, it's your genes that load the gun, but it's your lifestyle that pulls the trigger. And so what we know is that you know, you can turn on or off certain genes based on your lifestyle. And the good news is that over 95% of these diseases that we're seeing in America today that are so prevalent, they're growing every year, over 95% are completely preventable just by changing your lifestyle, by living the 5 essentials, by living a congruent life to the way that our body's created and designed. And that's really what we're going to spend some time talking about today, because we don't want to see that for our kids. You obviously don't want to see that for your kids. And we're going to do whatever we can to equip and arm you with information and truth so that you can make that happen.
Okay, so let's talk about the immune system. I think people are more aware of the integrity of their immune systems than they maybe ever have been, because of all the things that are happening around the coronavirus. So we just wanted to make it really easy for you to understand, hopefully. I'm just getting it. There we go. We are seeing a huge rise in immune system disorders in kids, and not what you might think. It's not the inability to fight the virus or the bacteria that's out there, but now we're seeing immune systems now like turning on children's bodies, and with autoimmune disorders. We see type 1 diabetes, asthma, allergies, hay fever, like never before, allergic dermatitis, so lots of skin issues, eczema, food allergies through the roof, celiac disease, Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis. These are very painful diseases that children are now dealing with, and it's very heartbreaking for a parent to watch their child suffer needlessly with these diseases that didn't used to exist, you know, a decade or 2 ago in kids. And then, as we said earlier, cancer. So what is causing that? You know, that's something we always ask the question, why? You know, what is happening? And I always like to go back to looking at, and this slide is very overwhelming. I don't expect you to understand this fully or anything, but I just want to kind of show you, this is taken right out of one of our textbooks from school, just to show you how complex and brilliant our immune systems are. So if you look on the left, we have our innate immune system. So this is your first and second lines of defense, and we have all these different barriers that a pathogen would have to go through before it gets to the blood. And then we have what takes over is our adaptive immune system. We're talking about our lymphocytes, our T cells, our B cells, our natural killer cells. And then the T cells differentiate into Th1 and Th2, and they have different responsibilities and roles in the immune system, and they talk to, you know, the innate immune system, the inflammatory process, back and forth. And this is kind of how lifelong immunity is created in a body when there's an exposure to a pathogen like a virus or a bacteria, is we have to go through all these different layers. And I want to bring this up because this is important to understand when we talk about, you know, the idea of vaccinations as some sort of immune therapy. versus looking at, a natural exposure to a virus or an antigen. We're talking about two very different pathways that are being activated. So with a natural exposure, like I said, you're going through multiple layers of defense before that pathogen ever gets into the bloodstream to act on the cells. Whereas the idea with the vaccination is that it's acting primarily on the Th1 area of the immune system. So really what we're talking about is the fact that antibodies are being created, but because the antigen in the vaccination didn't actually go through all of the lines of defenses, now we aren't creating that lifelong immunity. And so I bring that up because vaccines are a very, touchy topic right now for families. And I encourage people to do research. I encourage you to understand the basics of how the immune system works and how these things are acting on the body. But I don't think it's any coincidence that we're now, as we're seeing a rise in the number of vaccines that are being recommended, I don't think it's a coincidence that now we're seeing a rise in autoimmune conditions in kids, because we are messing with the immune system in a way that it wasn't designed for. I like to show this slide. So in 1986, with the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act, essentially what's happened here is that now vaccine manufacturers were dealing with a lot of litigation for injuries that were suffered at the hand of vaccines. And so they came to the US government, said, hey, our supplies are going to be limited because of the litigation against us. What can you do? Well, now these vaccine manufacturers have been given basically legal immunity. And now if there's an injury or a death, that goes actually through the government. And I think parents aren't really aware of that. So this liability that's been taken off of the hands of the vaccine manufacturers is very dangerous, in my opinion, because now they don't have any skin in the game. And as we continue to increase the number of vaccines that are recommended, we're seeing an increase in the number of injuries. The CDC report of VAERS data, so this is the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System that is public. You can see it publicly. I'll show you a screenshot of the website in just a moment, but they found the data between 91 and 2001 was maybe 1 in 100,000 people would suffer an adverse reaction to a vaccine. Okay, so that was the data then. And this was kind of before people really started to be aware of the fact that they should probably be reporting these things. So there was a lot of underreporting happening. Fast forward to 2009, now the data is revealing that the number of serious adverse events is now as high as 10 to 15%. So that's 2 times the number reported in the previous decade. But we're also seeing a rise in the number of vaccines that are being given. So why am I bringing this up? Well, I think every parent has the right to informed consent. I think that you have a right to understand if there is a risk, then there should be choice, and there are risks associated. So this is why I bring this up. We're going to move on. I'm going to show you a screenshot of the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System. So this is something you can Google. You can go straight to it. A lot of times I'll tell parents about this and they're like, no, that's not real. Like, how can that be? My medical doctor never told me about it. Well, this is it. This is what it looks like. This is where your pediatrician or yourself would go if there was, unfortunately, an adverse event as a result of a vaccine. And in terms of compensation, I mentioned that vaccine manufacturers no longer have liability. Well, now HRSA is in charge of basically paying out these claims for injuries and deaths. Again, this is something you can access. You can just Google HRSA NVICP. And this is essentially how it'll explain how that whole process works, where people are compensated. And because it's underreported, a lot of people just don't even realize that they should even report something bad that's happened. So I just want people to be aware of this before we move on.
Yeah, so this isn't a vaccine webinar. However, we're talking about how to make sure that we have the healthiest kids on the planet. So we're gonna pivot into another topic. But the thing is that whether you decide that vaccination is the right thing for your child or not, either way, the best thing that you can do for your child is to make sure that they're healthy from the inside out. We all know that a vaccine is not going to save us from sickness and disease. We all know that medication is not going to save us from sickness and disease. Health always comes from within. And so regardless of where you stand in that regard, we're going to talk about laws and principles that are irrefutable that govern and promote health from the inside out. So we're going to talk first about mindset, because really, what you think about comes about, and your mindset is the filter in which you see the world and you see yourself in it. And it's also, how you make decisions. So how you think about things determines what you do about things. And you got to remember that healthy adults equal healthy kids. And I actually think we should probably flip that around and say that healthy kids turn out to be healthy adults. So children are great imitators. They're going to do whatever you're doing. And even our kids, it's kind of embarrassing sometimes if they'll call us out, like, we'll make them eat their vegetables and we're sitting there eating chips and salsa or something like that. Like, hey, why do you get to do that? That's not fair. Like, if you get to do it, I get to do it. Kids are going to do whatever you do. So, that's number one place to start. If you want healthy kids, you have to take responsibility of your own health. Your kids are not going to be healthier than you are, at least not while they're young. They may see what you're doing and decide that they don't want that for their life, and they might choose to do something once they get a little bit older. But even then, it's really dicey. In fact, studies show that if a child is overweight or even obese as a child, and they don't, fix that by the time they're out of middle school, they have a 75, or it's a 7-fold increased risk of being obese for the rest of their life. So basically, how you start them is how they're going to finish. So just make sure that it doesn't mean you have to be perfect, but kids are going to imitate whatever you do. As far as mindset, we did this for our family, and it's been really powerful. We created this short list of family values. These are things that we constantly repeat ourselves and try to teach and educate our kids on. And you don't have to use these. You can find your own. In fact, I would encourage you to take time, and figure out what's important to you and your family. For us, there's just a handful of rules or codes that we live by. Do it anyway, never quit, see the opportunity in everything, health is wealth, love Jesus, live Bible. Just a handful of things that cover a multitude of thoughts and actions. But it helps to set the mindset and focus on the things that you want your kids to focus on. Next thing in terms of mindset is, when it comes to health, a lot of times we don't really pay attention to our health until we lose it. A lot of times you just go throughout your day and you go about your life, and you don't really make health a priority or stop and think about it until something goes wrong. And then the question is, well, what do we do about it? Well, again, that's determined based on how you think about your health or the situation that your child's going through. So you take something like a fever. When you get sick, it's really common to get a fever. Well, before you do something about it, you got to stop and ask the question, what is a fever? Is a fever good or bad? And the question I always ask is your body smart or stupid? It can't be both. Well, your body is doing this fever. It's creating this fever. It's either smart or stupid. If it's smart, then you ask the question, well, why? What's the body creating the fever for? Well, obviously, we all know now, especially with coronavirus, that coronavirus can't live in elevated temperatures. That's why your body creates a fever. It's because it's to kill stuff, right? So fever is not a bad thing. So the worst thing you could do is to give your kids something that lowers their fever, right? Same thing with vomiting or coughing or congestion or diarrhea. Your body always does the right thing. And that's the thing you have to ask yourself, is the body smart or stupid? If it's smart, it's always smart. No matter what it does, no matter how it reacts, it's always smart. So doing something to counteract what your body's trying to do to restore homeostasis and balance in your body, you're working against that innate immune response, which is not a good idea. Now, obviously, there's a time and a place for medical intervention in crisis or emergency cases. But, most of the time we interfere way too quickly just because we don't want to be uncomfortable, and I get it. Nobody wants to see their kid crying or in pain or hurting or suffering. I get that. However, if you interfere and you undermine your child's immune system, you're actually setting them up for failure in the future. It's just like, we all know that we shouldn't just give our kids whatever they want to eat just so they don't whine. We know that if we do that, we're actually creating a monster, right? And the same is true with your immune system. So just don't interfere. The next topic is oxygen and exercise. And really what we're talking about here is working out. And most of the time you don't have to tell your kids to work out because they're full of energy and you can't keep them from bouncing off the walls, 23 hours a day. But at the same time, if you look at statistics, I'll come back to this slide in just a second, but look at some of these statistics. 1/3 of our children are physically active every day. 1/3. What should it be? It should be 100%. 100% of people all over, no matter what your age, should be active, but especially our kids. Less than 5% of adults participate in 30 minutes of physical activity per day. which is not very much, by the way, a half hour. 24 hours a day, you're talking about a half an hour. Over 80% of adolescents do not meet the physical activity guidelines for youth in America. The average child spends 7.5 hours a day in front of a screen. And I don't care if it's for school. I don't care if it's because everything's virtual now. That's fine, but you got to offset that. You got to balance that out by getting physically active. 1/3 of high school students play 3 hours of video games per day. Yeah. And that's fine if it's a hobby and it's a way to blow off steam or just relax, whatever. But 3 hours of video games per day, it's not productive. It's not good for your health. It's not good for your brain, right? And that's why, if you look at childhood obesity, 1 out of 5 kids and adolescents are considered obese. So at the end of the day, physical activity is a super important thing. We know that studies show that being active and moving your body actually helps generate brain function and helps grow a child neurologically. And again, kids are going to do whatever they see you doing. So if you're not physically active, your kids aren't going to be physically active. And that doesn't mean that you have to take your kids to the weight room every day or put them on a treadmill when they're 5 years old. Do things that are fun. This is our family. We do some CrossFit style stuff, but we like to go trail running. We have our home gym set up so that our kids can have fun and create obstacle courses, and they can play and they can make it really fun, because if it's just like adults, if you hate working out, guess what? You're never going to work out. If you grow your kids up to hate working out, they're not going to like working out either. So make it fun, keep them active, and just make it a priority.
Yes. So I have, as I said, I have 4 kids. And I never force them to work out. I don't want them to look at exercise as something that's like a chore. And so I will take them out to our gym that we have in our garage, and I'll work out and I'll say, hey, I would love to have a workout buddy. And sometimes they say no, and they just sit there and they watch me or they go play. But the next day, you know what, odds are that I'm going to have one of them right there with me doing push-ups and doing squats. And so it's really awesome. And I make sure that they enjoy it. All at the same time. So it shouldn't be something that's militant where you're saying, hey, you need to come work out with me, because they're going to end up, that's going to backfire and they're going to hate working out. So let's switch gears and talk nutrition. So this is a big one because I think we talked about in a video that we did the other day about the picky eater. So I'm going to get to that in a little bit, but really nutrition is so critically important for these growing and developing little humans. And so we really do need to be doing a better job as a culture to give our kids the nutrients that they need. I really do see kids are undernourished, in that term. We used to just picture kids, unfortunately, just in Africa, with the big bellies and starving. And really, American kids are undernourished. We're not getting the nutrients that we need. We might be getting adequate calories, but they're not quality. And so our kids are undernourished. They're not getting the nutrients they need. We look at our microbiome, and our nutrition has a direct effect on our microbiome. That's our healthy bacteria that, work synergistically with all of the chemical processes in our body. And first of all, we've destroyed that microbiome in our gut. So we do that through C-sections because babies are not getting that initial inoculation as they go through the birth canal with a big gulp of what we call probiotics, the probiotic gulp. And antibiotics. So a lot of times kids at a very young age are given antibiotics because of whether it's an ear infection or something along those lines, which then destroy and deplete all the good bacteria that's been building up since they were born. And then finally, processed and inflammatory food can really impact that microbiota that happens in our gut. So let's take a look a little bit deeper at this. We encourage parents to have their children on a quality probiotic. And that is because a lot of times we cannot avoid those things that are actually having a negative effect on the bacteria that are in our gut. And so if your kids have ever eaten conventional meat, they've probably been exposed to antibiotics through that meat. Dairy products, that's a big one if it's conventional dairy products. And as I said, we're seeing a rise in C-sections. And then just the standard American diet really depletes it. So I think every child can benefit from probiotics for the most part. We love our Max Kids probiotics powder. It's super easy. We put it in our kids' smoothies, or you can put it even just in water. And it has, what we found in looking at studies over the last decade or so is that it's not necessarily the quantity of the probiotic. So it's not necessarily making sure they get, 5 billion CFUs of a probiotic every single day. That would actually probably be really, really bad for some kids. But what I would like parents to understand is the diversity of the probiotics, the diversity of the bacteria that they're consuming, because that has been shown to have the best effect on the immune system and overall function of the digestive system. So we love Max Kids. It's got 10 different strains of the bacteria that have actually been studied to have a beneficial effect on the gut and the immune system. So it's really easy, and our kids love it. I'm gonna move on. Let's talk about your kids' lunch. So, a lot of times we can't control what they're eating. I have a hard time because my kids, at school, they want to take part in the birthday parties, and I don't want them to feel deprived or ostracized and left out. But I do what I can for what I can control. So if I'm packing their lunch, which I do, most of the time, I want to make sure that I'm not including things that are going to take away from that gut microbiome or, cause inflammation in their body. So we definitely don't want to be packing things like Lunchables. Those are highly processed. If you don't believe me, go look at the ingredients list on the back. Bags of chips, same thing. Oftentimes are loaded with rancid oils and that are just going to cause inflammation in the body. I don't pack typically desserts. I may pack like a sweet treat that usually involves some sort of a fruit that they don't normally get, maybe some berries, some grapes, and then definitely not fruit drinks. So these are a high source of sugar for kids. In fact, soda and fruit juice are probably the #1 sources of sugar consumption in America. So we just steer clear of that and just give them a fun water bottle that they can take to school. There we go.
Yeah, and before you move on to this next section, I just wanted to say, you guys will see on the side of your screen, there's a little tab that says offers. All the stuff that we're talking about today, like the probiotics powder, and there's a couple other supplements that we personally give our kids. You'll see there's an offer. If you click on the offers, there's a link to take you to our web store. If you want to learn more about these things, there's great like frequently asked questions, there's white papers, there's science, there's research, there's ingredient breakdowns, there's source descriptions. So the only reason why we're putting this stuff in here is because literally every single day in the office, we have people ask us, hey, what do you take? Or what do you give your kids? And obviously, we've done lots of research on this stuff for years and years and years. And in our opinion, this is the best stuff that's out there. So if it's good enough for our kids, we believe that it's good enough for your kids too. So if you guys want to learn more about that, you can click the link. It won't take you out of the webinar. You can open it up in a different tab. And just something else to be aware of, because obviously every family's got a budget and everybody's, trying to, do the best with what they have financially. These Max Kids supplements are actually really, really reasonable comparative to what you might find at the health food store or whatever. But what's really cool about doing it, getting them online, is if you can do the subscribe and save thing, kind of like you do with Amazon or whatever else. If you buy it through the website, you could always get it through the office. But if you buy it through the website and you click subscribe and save, I think, or auto ship or something like that, I believe you get 10% off. It's like
20%.
I think it's, oh, it is 20. Oh, wow. That's a good deal. We should do that. Anyway, yeah, you get a pretty big discount. So, and you can cancel it at any time. So you're not locked into, a certain period of time, but just wanted you guys to be aware.
You keep interrupting my sections. We have a history with that. I'm just kidding. So what to pack in your kids' lunch? So we just, make it really simple. And again, if you're staying to the end, you're going to get that recipe ebook. But make sure there's a quality protein. So we don't want conventional meats because they can be loaded with those antibiotics. And what I would say instead, just if you can get organic, that would be ideal. A lot of these lunch meats that people pack contain nitrates and nitrites. So read the ingredients. Those lead to can convert to nitrosamines in the body, which are carcinogenic. So just be careful about the meat that you're putting in your kids' lunches. Quality carbs, so these would be like starchy vegetables. Sometimes we'll make like sweet potato fries in the oven and then we'll pack those. They might be a little soggy, but my kids like them. You can do, fruits. That would be a quality carbohydrate. So, whatever bananas, berries, apples. Sometimes we'll do like apple slices with almond butter. So good fats, that would be an example of, like a good fat. So doing some raw nuts and seeds, make sure they're not roasted, they're not loaded with rancid oils. And then just water. We got our kids some really fun stainless steel water bottles, had them put their names on them, and they enjoy filling those up and taking those to school and bringing them home every day. So before you shop, you got to plan. And when you plan and you really just go to the grocery store one time a week, I used to be that mom that would like plan right before, I was going to make dinner, and I'd have to run to the store, drag all my kids, and I'd end up spending way more money than I should have. So when we implement a plan, it makes it really easy to save money and to set ourselves up for success for the entire week. So we'll meal plan, we'll write down all the meals we're going to make. We typically rotate through the same 6 or 7 meals, and then make our grocery list straight from that, so we don't deviate from it, especially if you go to the store hungry, how that turns out a lot of the time. And then I make sure that our kids are involved, so they put up a vote for what they want to eat. And like I said, we kind of stick to the same meals, week in and week out, and sometimes we'll deviate from that. But if you're somebody who's just starting to switch over to, a healthier lifestyle, you want to start making small changes. Don't overwhelm yourself, because inevitably I've seen patients try to do that and then they just give up because it's super frustrating and they just give up. So start adding more fruits and vegetables to the meal plan that you're already doing. So just find a way to get more in and incorporate more in, and then slowly, as you start to implement more of these healthy recipes, it gets a lot easier. We say skip processed foods, so as much as you can. So if you're somebody who finds themselves going to the drive-through a lot, like fast food drive-throughs, I would say, take it down. Like maybe only do that twice a week instead of 3 times a week. Just do something to improve. And in terms of processed foods for your kids, I know it's easy, it's convenient, but again, if you have a plan, it actually makes it much easier for you. So we're going to show you how to do that in our recipe book, Tips at Home, so you can cook ahead. And this is something that when I was working more full-time was really helpful, was to cook and prep things on Sunday. Once I had my meal plan and all my ingredients, you're chopping your veggies, maybe you cook some of your meats ahead of time, and that way it's really easy when it's time for dinner to just throw those together, and then you're not going through the McDonald's drive-through because it's convenient. And then growing your own, we just did our first planner boxes this year. It took us a long time to get on board with that. But now we're growing our own food. Our kids are connected to that process. They know where their food comes from, and it's been really beautiful. So at the store, stock up on what you can. Our local Pilgrim's Market, you get your 3 quarterly 20% off coupons. And so that's a great way to, stock up on like grass-fed beef, in a big case, things like that. Spot bargains. I know there are a lot of people that find bargains all over town on a lot of the healthier organic options, fruits and vegetables. Farmers markets, ours just launched last week, and so that's exciting. That's a great way to save on produce as well. So this is just an example of kind of what our house looks like in terms of what we feed our kids. This is my son Xavier back when he was a little guy, and yes, that's smoothie all over him, and he loves it. He loved his smoothie so much that he wanted to bathe in it, apparently, but I thought that was really cute. So we've got, we just make it fun, and some days we'll just get organic turkey breast and throw some sprouts and cucumbers and cream cheese on it and call it lunch. Our kids love that. Other times we'll put a little bit more thought into it. This salmon dinner that you see kind of in the middle, that's a staple in our house. Once a week we do salmon, whether it's just a salmon fillet with broccoli, or we'll make healthy salmon patties. But really we try to rotate through the same things. Okay, so with our picky eaters, I'm gonna pull up. This kind of varies for the age groups. So babies, I would say 8 to 12 months, we typically, there we go. We typically don't start giving our kids any sort of solid food other than breast milk until they're 8, 9, maybe even 12 months. I just kind of slowly start that process. I want to make sure they have teeth first, because this tells me that those digestive enzymes in their saliva are now there to help break down the food. Before that, the research says that they're not there in enough amounts to really help the body digest those foods before they get to the gut. So I usually encourage parents to include breast milk with all foods initially to make it easier for the gut to digest. And then try not to expose that age group to grains and high glycemic fruits, because we don't want to start, an unwanted sugar addiction early on where they're just going to crave those things as they get older. So, starting with, if you want to puree, a lot of parents will do that, like cauliflower. You'll steam the cauliflower, steam the broccoli, and then make a puree and get them to eat it that way. Other parents want to wait till they can actually chew the food. So they'll cut up cucumbers, steamed carrots and things like that, so that the kids are actually having to kind of chew it to help break it down. So kind of whatever resonates with you the most. For toddlers, so if you're starting healthy and your kid's already kind of addicted to certain foods, so if they're toddlers, I would say do small portions, but also make sure there's a variety of healthy foods, healthy vegetables. The colors, if they can see different colors, then they're probably going to be more attracted to it. Color is huge for our kids. They really like those colorful vegetables. Mild texture, so like cucumber, avocado, carrots, these are things that are kind of tolerable. And then obviously if you can make a smoothie with vegetables in it and purees, this is a great way to kind of hide it, but you're kind of conditioning their palate at the same time. We put them in a fun glass mug with a fun straw, and so they enjoy drinking them. It's kind of an experience for them, and they help make those. And that has been very successful for us. So kids between the ages of 4 and 8, if you're starting to switch over to being healthier, you can find 2 to 3 vegetables that they're going to eat. So maybe it's carrots, maybe it's, I don't know, maybe they like broccoli, maybe they like cucumber. So starting with that and just making sure to get those into every single meal. And then each week find a new vegetable to have them try. And again, it's quality over quantity, and we just want to make sure there's some diversity there, and that's what shows to have the greatest effect on inflammation in the body. Looking at the older age groups, so between ages 9 and 13, definitely get them involved in the meal planning and the prep. Take them to the store with you. I know we've had patients that have had success with that. And then if they have a favorite dish that you feel is processed or too processed, you can always Google like a keto version. And so that's going to reduce the amount of processed things that are in that dish, and they'll still probably enjoy it. You can add like healthy sauces that you make yourself. Primal Kitchen is a great brand that we will get dressings from, and they make different sauces that are low glycemic. So you can put that on vegetables. My kids will eat anything that has cheese on it. So if it's a healthy cheese that's organic, then they will, we'll do that in a lot of our meals. And then cutting out processed and fast food. Again, just do this baby steps, because it's really hard to just do it cold turkey, especially for this age group. And then teens, more of the same. I would say even get them involved in, say, like a 30-day challenge that you're going to do as a family. Really educate them on why. We've had patients that bring their teenagers to our workshops or get them on a webinar like this so that they understand kind of the why behind it. And you'd be surprised, like a lot of these teens start making huge changes for themselves. And again, parents, you want to be the change that you want to see in your kids. So set the example, and yes, admit that it's tough, but stick with it. Okay, are you coming back? Okay, this is me. So we get asked all the time, what vitamins should our kids be on? It can be really easy to just go to to Costco or whatever it is and just pick up the cheapest kids vitamin that maybe has a sweetener in it. It's got sometimes artificial dyes in it, but your kids are eating them because they taste good. But in terms of the nutritional value, it's not really doing much for their health. In fact, in some cases, it's actually doing the opposite of what you would want. So these are two of the supplements that we give our kids on a regular basis. It's the multivitamin. It's totally from Whole Foods, organic. There is the only sweetener in there is stevia, and it's the raw stevia leaf form. So we don't have any things like sucralose, which are these artificial sweeteners that you find in a lot of the kids' vitamins. And it really covers all the bases and checks all the boxes for me as a physician. So you want to know what to give your kid? This is what I give my kids. Highly recommend it. In terms of omega and D3, so our kids, we've done lots of testing on pediatric patients in our office, and I would say that the two deficiencies that we see the most are omega deficiency and a vitamin D3 deficiency, a vitamin D deficiency. So we highly recommend this for parents, especially if your kids are not regularly getting like wild caught fish in their diets. So this, and we do that on a regular basis. We still supplement with this omega. So again, the sourcing is so critical with omega supplements, with fish oil. You want to make sure they're not tainted with heavy metals and other toxins that the fish may have been bioaccumulating in their tissues. In terms of vitamin D, the summertime, our kids are outside, they're in their bathing suits, running through sprinklers, going to the pool, going to the beach. So they're getting a good exposure, and their vitamin D levels in the summertime are usually pretty good, but it's the rest of the 9 months of the year, sometimes 10 months, when they're not getting that sun exposure to create the vitamin D in their bodies. So we just have them supplement with this. And it's a great way to make sure their levels are adequate for their immune system function and for overall health in the body. Looking at minimizing toxins. So in our video that we did yesterday, we talked about toxicity in our kids. And this is a big problem. I mentioned vaccines earlier. There are, metals and things and adjuvants that actually are toxic in the body. And we look at foods, pesticides, herbicides, all the different sources of toxins, electromagnetic radiation from Wi-Fi and cell towers, all of these things, these poor little bodies that are developing. So we're seeing increases in toxicity, from drinking water even. 4 billion prescription drugs are ingested in the US each year. 4 billion, okay? So 70,000 chemicals are used commercially. 3,000 chemicals are added to our food supply. 10,000 chemicals are used in food processing, preserving, and storage. This is just mind-blowing. The EPA estimates that our homes are now 5 to 100 times more toxic than outdoor air. And in Idaho, we spend so much time indoors because of the weather. So of course, this is going to start to be a problem. We look at flame retardants in our furniture. Over the last decade, especially since I became a mom, I just became hyper aware of all the different potential sources of toxins in my kids. So I do get them tested every single year. We look at their organic acid test, which we do give for a lot of our pediatric patients, but this is a kind of a telltale sign of, where the holes are in their health. And a lot of times we'll see some things creep up in terms of toxicity in those tests. This study, we call it the 10 Americans study, looked at 10 babies that were in their mama's womb. And it looked at the cord blood of the 10 babies. And what they found was over 200 chemicals on average in the cord blood of these babies. And unfortunately, what that tells us is these kids that have never even set foot on earth, they've been protected in their mama's womb, already have all these chemicals reaching them. So the point of this study was really to show that there's not a lot we can do to avoid toxins. We can live to minimize toxins, minimize the sources as much as possible. But at the end of the day, we're still being exposed, even if you go to the park, if they spray, herbicides on the grass, your kids are getting exposed to it that way. They're spraying down the playgrounds with bleach because of the coronavirus. So your kids are getting exposed to toxins that way just by going to the park. So my point is this: we can do everything that we can in our control, but at the end of the day, detoxing is something that just should be second nature for us, because we have to get rid of these toxins. When they bioaccumulate, they lead to disease. And so this is one of the solutions that we provide for parents. It's a very mild detox powder. Again, you can put this in their smoothies. You can sprinkle it in yogurt. And this really is just whole food components that really help your digestive system. They help the kid's liver to really get those toxins out of the body and safely eliminate them. So this is something that we give to our kids every single day. We'll take like 3 or 4 days off every couple of months just to give their bodies a chance to kind of clear everything out. But they do really, really well with this. I love this product because it is so gentle. There are a lot of detox products on the market that are not as gentle and can actually cause gut issues for kids. So I highly recommend this one. This is another one of the handful that we give our kids.
Yeah, and again, all that stuff is in the offers tab. So right now, I think it's the detox one that's up there. But again, you can find all that stuff on our website, summitcda.com. And again, this is all just stuff that we give our kids, and it's after decades of research. You know, we have an 8-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 9-month-old. And, you know, these are all things that we believe to create optimal health in their bodies. And so, you know, it kind of goes back to that old saying, like, if you knew what we knew, you would do what we do. And, you know, this is us sharing what we know, but hopefully sharing a little bit about what we do as well. Again, if you guys have questions, you know, don't hesitate to write stuff in the chat box here. I know we had one question that said, at what age do you start the detox for your kids? And I really think it just depends on the kid. I mean, we've had some children need it fairly early on, but you want to take that question real quick? I
believe the age that's listed is 3 years of age, but I will check on that in just a second, Annie, and I'll type it in to the comments.
Yeah, and the signs or symptoms that you might need to detox would be like skin issues, if they're constantly like throwing up or have reflux. I mean, we've seen more cases of reflux in kids, I think, than ever before, just in the last couple of years. But those, so skin, reflux, constipation is a big one too. So those are all signs or symptoms you might need to detox, and also probiotics too. I mean, I think whenever I personally recommend detox, I also recommend the probiotics powder to go with it, because oftentimes it's a gut issue, and detoxification is oftentimes a gut issue as well. Not necessarily that the gut does the detoxifying, that's more your liver and your kidneys and your spleen. But in order to eliminate all those toxins, you have to have a healthy gut. And so fortifying your gut health with probiotics is a really, really healthy thing. So the last section we're going to talk about here is core chiropractic. And this is really powerful because you know, there was a study of over 1,500 babies. This was a study that was actually done by a medical doctor, interestingly enough. And he found that over 90% of these babies, and it didn't matter how they were born, it could be just a normal vaginal birth, it could have been C-section, it could have been forceps or suction, or, you know, no issues at all. But he looked at over 1,500 babies, and he found that over 90% of them had strain in their neck and their cranial, cranial areas, like where the sutures and the bones come together in their skull. And he found that if these things went uncorrected, that it would interfere with not only child development, but also their nervous system, which is the system that runs and governs the function of everything in the body. And he says, you know, ultimately what it eventually led to was Atlas or C1 issues, which is the very top of your neck, that led to things like central motor impairment. So they didn't have proper movement function, lower resistance to infection. So if your kids are getting sick all the time, this could be part of the problem, especially ear, nose, and throat infections. I can't tell you how many kids over the years who've had chronic ear infections who start getting adjusted and getting their spine aligned, and those ear infections subside or go away altogether. So, you know, the point is, chiropractic for kids can be extremely beneficial, and the interference, you know, where these misalignments or these subluxations can happen, obviously from birth trauma like C-section, forceps, vacuum extraction, but also once they're out in the world, interference from lack of movement or improper movement like car seats, carriers, bouncers, walkers, swings, bumbo seats. And obviously as kids age and develop, it only gets worse because, you know, 90% of kids that I mean, next time you go to a restaurant or anywhere, you know, public, look around, and anybody who's a teenager, what are they doing all the time? You know, they're looking down, playing video games or Snapchat on their phone or Facebook or whatever the case is. And it's not just adults or kids, it's adults too. But the thing is that doing that ruins your posture. And if you ruin your posture, you ruin your spine. If you ruin your spine, you ruin your nervous system, right? And it's not just once you're out in the world. I mean, this can actually, this is crazy. This is a concept that's relatively new, but they've actually done a bunch of research, and they found that intrauterine constraint can cause subluxations or misalignments in a baby's spine as well. And all this really is intrauterine constraint is where, the shape of the womb gets changed or distorted because of the alignment of the mom, right? So this is crazy. So if the mom, if you're like pregnant and you're growing, and you have hip issues, you have lower back pain, you have SI joint problems, you have sciatica going on in your leg, those are all signs and symptoms that something's not in alignment in your spine, and that's uncomfortable for you. But you may have not ever stopped to think about the fact that that could actually be distorting the shape and structure and alignment of the spine of your baby, which I think is just a super fascinating concept. But I think it also answers a lot of the question, about like this guy's study, Dr. Gutman, who found that 90% of babies already have cranial strain, strain, sprain, or misalignments. And I think it's just an interesting thing. So the point is, if you want a healthy baby, you got to make sure mom's healthy. And that probably goes without saying. That's why mom, eats healthy, takes prenatal vitamins, exercises, does yoga, all these different things. You got to make sure your spine is a part of your health plan as well if you're pregnant or planning to be. Warning signs that your baby might be subluxated or have a spinal issue. Inability to latch, favoring one side. I see this one a lot with brand new babies or kids 0 to 6 months. They'll have an easy time latching on one side, but they won't latch on the other side. So they'll favor one side or another. Usually that's a misalignment in the atlas where all the rotation in the neck happens. Reflux, again, this is, an exponentially higher number of people, bringing their babies in with reflux over the last probably 2 or 3 years than I ever saw before. And I think a lot of it's food related, because mom was eating processed foods or mom's toxic or something like that. But I think a lot of it too is because there's a lot more C-sections happening. There's a lot more vacuum extractions or forceps extractions, constipation and excess gas. This one always, I always tell parents that bring their babies in when they have a constipation issue, I always tell them bring an extra diaper, because kids, they get subluxated easier, but they also get rid of subluxation easier too, meaning their bodies adapt and respond to chiropractic adjustments so fast that, literally I've had babies poop on the adjusting table because they get adjusted and it's like hitting the eject button. Sorry, it's so gross, but I'm dead serious. Like it happens that quickly. It's really cool. In fact, we had an employee who they had a baby and the baby didn't have a bowel movement for like 9 days. And the pediatrician told the parents that it's completely normal to not have a bowel movement for 9 days. And so they had just had this baby when he started working here. And I said, hey, bring her in. Let's get her spine checked. We'll adjust her. And literally like 20 minutes after the adjustment, she went through like 3 diapers. So obviously that's not normal. That's not what was supposed to happen. She just had something that was blocked up and it was preventing her body from doing what it was created to do. Sleep issues, respiratory stress, recurrent ear infections. I kind of already talked about that. So the benefits of chiropractic adjustments, and just so you know, when people think about or hear about babies getting adjusted, yeah, I get it. It's like you think of the snap, crackle, pop, and you're like, there's no way I would let you do that to my baby. I wouldn't do that to your baby either. I wouldn't want that to. But chiropractic adjustments or pediatric chiropractic is so unique and different, and compared to what an adult experiences in a chiropractic setting. And here's a picture of me adjusting a little guy here. And as you can see, it's very light touch. I always tell parents, the amount of pressure that we use with our fingertips in adjusting a baby is less than the amount of pressure that it takes to bruise a tomato. So you think about that, like we're not even pushing hard enough to bruise a tomato. And oftentimes we use little vibration instruments or things of that nature, where we can't really be effective with our hands. But the benefits, there's so many different ways that a baby can benefit. Number one, and I would say first and foremost, just staying healthy. The best form of healthcare is the form that never lets you get sick in the first place, right? However, I also know that people experience things, and so it's powerful to have a natural way of getting rid of those things. But as far as benefits for babies, obviously musculoskeletal issues, which I would say is actually probably the least common thing in babies. They're not coming in with strain sprains because they did too much yard work. They're coming in with things like colic or bedwetting or asthma or ear infections. And I can't tell you, it's very rare that a child would come into the office for chiropractic with these things and have these things not go away over a period of weeks or months. Can the body adapt? I always ask this question. One of my favorite quotes from Dr. James Chestnut is, I'll get to the quote in a second. I always think about this, in a classroom, you have the flu going around, and half the classroom gets sick, the other half of the classroom does not. They're all touching the same erasers and pencils and chalkboard, drinking from the same water fountain. They're all eating out of the same Play-Doh jars. They're all touching all the same stuff. How is it that half of them get sick and the other half don't? It's not because of luck. It's not because they weren't exposed. They're all in there at the same time for a period of time. It's the difference is one set of children, their bodies are healthy. The other set, they're not. That's it. That's all. That's the only viable answer, right? It's not genetics. It's not luck. It's not happenstance. The body is created to be resilient and adapt to its environment as long as it's functioning well. And this is the quote that I love. The only way to produce homeostasis and health is to decrease chronic stress response in the body by either reducing the stressors, which are all the lifestyle things that we already talked about today, or by improving the adaptive abilities of the body with lifestyle changes, right? Drugs do neither. Drugs will never elicit health in your child's body. Chiropractic, practiced correctly, can do both, right? And here's how that works, right? Your spine and nervous system, or your nervous system rather, controls every function of your body. For your heart to beat, your lungs to breathe, your stomach to digest food, for a cut to heal. We all know that power comes from the brain, goes down the spinal cord and then through the nerves like a wiring system in a building or a circuit. And the spine's job is to protect that system. And when the spine's out of alignment, it creates neurological stress or interference, which results in dysfunction or dis-ease in your body. And the way that this can happen in kids is, there's lots of different ways. Trampolines, wrestling with siblings, the birth process, technology. But here's a great example of the difference. Here's a set of twin boys, 6 years old, both received the same medical care, got the same love, ate the same food, slept in the same room, all the same stuff. The child on the left, the neurotypical child, has a perfect curve in their neck, has no subluxations, the spine's in perfect alignment, there's no stress on the nervous system. That kid's totally perfect. The kid on the right, you can see he has lost the curve in his neck, and it created so much strain on the spinal cord that this kid actually regressed into autism. Now, am I saying that the bad spine caused the autism? Obviously not. However, when you interfere with the spine and nervous system, you reduce the body's ability to adapt to the stressors in life, right? Your body is less resilient to the stressors that all of us encounter during our lives, right? And so by having an aligned spine, it increases your body's resilience, your body's ability to adapt to its environment, right? And so the question is, how do you know? How do you know if your spine or if your child's spine is healthy and your nervous system is healthy? Well, it's to get it checked. It's no different than, checking to see whether or not you have a cavity in your tooth. We all take our kids to the dentist as soon as they have teeth because we want to make sure they don't have any cavities. And yet, for some odd reason, we wait until go to the chiropractor until we have back pain, even though it has hardly anything to do with back pain. And we want to make sure that those subluxations don't turn into, dysfunction or disease later on in life. The only way is to get checked. And so if you've never been into our office or you live local and you haven't ever had your child checked by a chiropractor, we just want to give you a special opportunity, healthy kids spine and nervous system assessment. So what this looks like, and this is the same for every kid that comes into our office. We start with a consultation because we want to find out as much information about what's going on with their health and their history as we can. Then we'll do an exam. And then if they need x-rays, if they're old enough for x-rays and they need x-rays, we'll take x-rays. Normally all of that is about $200, but because you're on the webinar, we're going to, there'll be an offer in the offers tab. So again, you click this tab. And if you'd like to take advantage of this, we only have 10 of these that are available, I believe. But if you would like to bring your child in instead of the $200 that it normally costs, if you just click the link that's in the offers tab, it'll take you to a schedule page. You can see our office schedule. You can pick a time that's convenient. You'll go ahead and make the $49 payment through the website, and that just secures your time because we're going to block out about a half an hour to spend with you. And then it's just a matter of coming into the office. And once we do the exam and take the x-rays, we'll sit down, we'll talk about what's going on. We'll give you a plan of action to make sure that your child's spine and nervous system is as healthy as can be. I do want to say that one thing that we're really proud of that we've created over the years is we've created a Healthy Spine Kids Club in our office. And so, the way that this works is our vision and our mission for the kids that we get to take care of is not just to treat them every once in a while when they have a headache or a cold or a backache. It's to make sure that these kids stay healthy and well for as long as we have the privilege of taking care of them. And so our kids club, basically the way that it works is, once you're in the kids club, you have the opportunity to be adjusted. Your kids do have the opportunity to be adjusted as much as needed, whether that's every week, every other week, once a month. Let's say your child gets sick or they get hurt, sports or whatever the case may be. Once you're in the kids club, there's really no difference, and that's just, it's a cool thing that we created. It's almost like a kids wellness plan instead of a treatment plan to fix back pain or fix a spine. So again, it starts with an evaluation so that we can see exactly what your child needs, but we would love the opportunity to bless and serve your kids